Dead Addict. Welcome to Hangover Sunday. Hangover Sunday has been a tradition at DEF CON for 12 years now. How many people here do not drink? A raise of hands? Okay, you all feel a lot less pain than everyone around you, so you win. There are advantages. Today I'm going to talk about hacking the media. And I actually had a media person walk up to me and a little bit of concern, and they're like, you're not going to talk about data poisoning our networks and inserting news articles and da-da-da-da. I'm like, wow, what a great idea. That'll be my next year's speech. Rock on. No, when I'm talking about hacking the media, I'm talking about manipulating the media. And it's all legal. So if anyone thinks they're going to learn how to break the law here, I apologize. And the gentleman with Google, the Google speech, he spoke yesterday. I'll tell you the quick story behind that. He had a flight out today, and he contacted me and said, hey, I need to switch with someone because I have a flight out. And I'm like, dude, like that, you're going to mess with some speaker, like it'll mess up someone's slot. And I don't want to do that to any other speaker. That's unreasonable. So I'm like, okay, all right. I want him to speak, so I'll screw up me. So I switched slots with him. Do any of you do volunteer work here? Some of you, some volunteer work. Right on. That's good. Any of you ever have any inclinations to go into a GM factory and to do some volunteer work on the floor and to help build some cars just for a couple hours, because cars do need to be built and they have a business to run, so maybe you want to step into the GM plant for a couple hours and kind of help out a little bit. Anyone feel those inclinations ever? Strange, no hands. I'm kind of shocked here. But for some reason, when a reporter walks up to you and says, hey, will you help me do my job and give me content that will be paid for, that my company will make money from, you're kind of doing volunteer work for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You're like, oh, yeah, I'll help you out. And then that always feels that way, right? You're always helping the media. I'll help you out. Damn, I never helped Jim out. I'm never like, you know what, you guys need cars, I need to help you, we need to make this happen. For some reason, though, there's some magic when a media person walks up to you. People, I think, feel an obligation or feel compelled to talk to them. You shouldn't feel that. You have no obligation to these people. Nothing. You owe them nothing. It's unreasonable to give away content for no reason. Furthermore, there's bad reasons to give away your content. If you're like, you know what? Damn, I'm going to be on TV. That'll be cool. My friends will see me. They'll be like, holy cow, I'm on TV. That's nifty. So then your reason is ego. Now, I have an ego. You all have egos. I understand this. But if that's your only reason for deciding to agree to be interviewed by either print or video media, I propose that that's a very bad reason. And if you want to still have your ego stroke, you can have that, because the fact they walked up to you, want to talk to you, and are interested in you, bingo. All that ego gratification could and should be satisfied right there, and then, if you want to, you can say, no thank you, I really don't want to talk to you. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about when you should say that and when you shouldn't say that. When is it a good time to actually engage the media? When do you want to gain their attention? When do you want to spend your time, your energies, giving something to them? So if you don't have your own personal agenda, I propose don't talk to the media. If you don't have a reason and a message that you want to communicate, and there's a few reasons for this, a few reasons why you might want to talk to the media. I talked to someone who's somewhat well known here a few years ago, Peter Shipley, and I said, and I like Peter. I've known Peter for years. Some people don't like him. I like him. I said, Peter, why are you such a goddamn media whore? Because you can only really say things like that to your friends, right? He's like, well, I'll tell you, Dead Addict. I figured out that every time I stepped in front of a camera and talked to the media, I ended up making about $10,000 more a year. I'm like, holy shit, that's a good answer. Oh my God, that's so reasonable. I'm down with that program. So, people have been labeled as media whores, and sometimes I'm a media whore. I'll just flat out say it. But that's a very good reason. He's essentially intentionally furthering his own career and making his name out there so he can do his consulting work or whatever his business is. His bosses see him on there and like, oh, you are important. Maybe we're not paying you enough. Maybe someone will try to steal you from us, so here's more money. I believed him when he told me this, but it actually happened to me too. I'll explain the anecdote and the interaction with a piece of media a little bit later. But I appeared on a national television program for a while, and man, they in some respects I was really unhappy with the context I was portrayed. But about a week after that, I was contacted and given a consulting gig outside of work that made me the kind of money that Mr. Shipley is talking about. It was really well, and that happened because someone knew who I was, but seeing my face on television reminded them, holy cow, Dead Addict needs some money, and we want to give it to him. That was great. One thing that's very important, I want to talk to you, how do you choose which media to talk to? And to some extent, I blame the person that's bitten by the media, who gets news bitten, who gets a sound bite. I blame that on the person. If they're burned, generally, I think it's the responsibility of the person that's burned. That doesn't mean the media that burns you is good or competent or any of this sort of thing. But you need to do research. You don't go into a job and you don't work for a company without knowing anything about them. You research a company, and the same way you need to do the same kind of due diligence on a reporter that a good reporter should be doing on you and your stories. A reporter walks up to you and says, hey, I want to talk to you. And you're like, great, give me a Google. I need a net connection. Like, give me 10 minutes with net connection. You want to look at two things. First, the output of the reporter in the past. I found in life that it's reasonable to judge people's future behaviors on their past behaviors. It's a reasonable thing for all human beings, I think. If someone's behaved in a certain way throughout life, they're going to behave that way in the future. So if a reporter's been writing bad hatchet jobs for 10 years, and they give you their name, and you say, okay, I'm going to talk to you, without researching them, well, if you research them, you'll figure out that they're going to destroy you, right? And you can prevent this. And if a reporter isn't comfortable with you doing just like a little peripheral research on them before you talk to them, that's probably not a good sign. And yeah, that's not good. So there's a couple of things. Print media versus video journalism. Oh, I'm sorry, some air quotes there. Video journalism, the television press. You can't tell a story in 3 minutes. You can add facts to something, a body of knowledge that people are already familiar with in 3 minutes, that's not a problem. But for this audience, the hacker and security community, everyone is ignorant. The general public doesn't know anything. So if you want to attempt to inform them, it'll take the context of something larger. And there is some video media that has a larger context to work within. But CNN, no, you're not going to give them enough information to. 3 minutes isn't enough to inform anyone about anything, really. Noam Chomsky. Anyone know that name? Chomsky? Hands? Few? Okay. He's on the media all over the world, and he's not on the media here so much in America, and he is kind of a dissident against American politics. But one thing he says is they need sound bites. They need 30 seconds, a minute, or whatnot. But in order to convey the depth and the amount of the perspective that's outside of the mainstream perspective, to actually inform and educate people and give people a context on things, you need a lot more than 3 minutes. As a rule, all of the nightly news shows, all of those people, they will not give you that context, and no matter how good their intentions are, and no matter how much integrity that journalist has, the constraints they're given won't allow for a good story to come out of it. A documentary, either a 1 hour or a 2 hour, these video formats, there's a possibility that a good story will be done. You can actually tell a story in an hour, so there's a possibility of this. So there was 2 or 3 years ago, I was approached by a reporter from A&E Investigative Reports, and they were doing a thing. They told me the thing they were doing on was cybercrime. I'm like, okay, cybercrime, great. And they wanted some new footage to talk about this slew of attacks against Yahoo and eBay, and at the time there was just a whole rash of e-commerce attacks. I didn't know anything in particular, but honestly, most of the time in hacking stories, you don't need a specific knowledge. You just need to read the news articles and be informed on your own, and then your perspective as a security person will sound informed and be intelligent. And anyone could have done this interview. Anyone. Anyways, I had them send me 3 tapes from previous shows that this particular company produced, because I wanted to know, okay, you want to interview me? Well, investigative reports that you could bury me, you could hatchet me. So send me some tapes. They sent me some tapes. I reviewed them. It didn't look all that bad. I talked to the reporter that was wanting to do the interview. That was great. She seemed like she had integrity. That was great too. I said, okay, we'll bring you down. You can come down. So they flew out and they set up in my house and all that sort of stuff. We did the interview, and they had integrity. They very much had integrity. They could have hatcheted me. They could have. If someone takes an hour's worth of video with you, you're giving them enough ammunition to destroy you if they want to. As a rule, no matter how careful you are, if you keep talking for a long enough amount of time, that can be spliced together to make you look like an idiot or evil or anything they want you to. But she had integrity, and I believed in her. Unfortunately, she was producing this for another company, not directly for A&E. So she got done with all this, cut it all up, sent it to A&E, and then what's-his-face that hosts A&E has this little voiceover. And man, I watched that story. Everything the voiceover said was arguably incorrect. Not a single true fact. The production company that did the thing he was doing the overlay for, they actually did some research. They tried very hard. They did a pretty good job. But that guy that sounds distinguished and has that authoritative voice, and the voiceover, the host of the show, everything he said, nonsense. Didn't bother me all that much. That's fine. What did bother me is the show was not about cyber crime or theft. The name of the show was E-Terror. So I was thrilled about that, needless to say. And I would have been completely upset and very, very angry, except I got a contract that made me a lot of money over the whole thing, so it's all good. One second, please. Gathering my thoughts and turning on my notebook that has too long of a timeout or too short of a timeout for its hibernate. Thank you, Microsoft. I like to thank Microsoft in all of my speeches. I'm a tester, so I make money off bugs, so thank you, Microsoft. So, when a media person approaches you, you need to look into their background and you need to do the due diligence. That's very important. Also, you need to understand what your agenda is. The media, when they come to you, they have an idea for a story. They know what they want to do already. As a rule, they already have a formulated story, and they're finding you, hoping you'll fit the piece that will help their story and reinforce the idea they already had going into it all. So to think that they want, and you know, obviously they're interested in what you have to say because they're talking to you, but they really, as a rule, when they talk to you, they already have what they imagined what the story's going to be and where it's going to go. So it's really important to understand what this is and to get it from them. Okay, what are you trying to say? You want to find out what their agenda is. They have an agenda. They really do. And they'll be honest about it. Reporters, they have stories, they have deadlines, then they want to get something out. That's great for them. But you need to figure out what their agenda is, because if you don't know what their agenda is walking into the story, if you don't know what they framed in their mind as what is the story before they walk in, you'll be shoved in the context of the point they're trying to make, which may be good and it may be very, very bad. Often in the area of computer crime, what sells is controversy, is dramatic things. They want a story that'll really interest people and ignite people, and it can be dangerous in cybercrime. Okay, so one short thing. This was the first bullet point I had. Yeah, I'm at my first bullet point. That's right. If you commit crimes actively right now, if you're what they call active, if you're running around doing crazy, stupid, illegal things, right? Probably very, very unwise to talk to the media. Chances are there'll be a point in your life when you're like, you know what, I have a job, or I'll hack my own internal network, I'm not going to break any laws anymore. There'll be a time when you're not going to be running around committing felonies that could put you in jail for 200 years just for the thrill of discovery. Your own personal risk analysis at some point in your life will say, well, that's a bad idea. But if you're still running around doing crazy illegal things, don't talk to the media. Do not talk to them. The FBI watches the news. The FBI watches the news. Even if there's a little handle underneath you, and you're like, yeah, when I was in Citibank the other day, the FBI has some due diligence and they'll figure out who you are. So you need to have an agenda walking into the whole thing, because they have an agenda. And if you understand what their agenda is, and then you have your own personal agenda, say it's anonymity rights, or you want to defend, you want to attack some legislation about the severity of penalties for this or that or the other thing. And there's a lot of good agendas to have, and there's a lot of reasons to talk to the press. If you can figure out how to change your message to meet with what they need for their story, so you essentially match agendas. You meet in the middle ground. So you give them what they need, and people that are experienced in talking with media have an understanding of what the media needs, but you make sure that it's what you need as well. Otherwise, you're being used by them, and you're not serving yourself at all. You're doing volunteer work for Fox, for Rupert Murdoch. Oh yes, the glory of the slides. They're not up there right now because I don't like people watching other things. I like people watching me fumble around with my notebook. That's much more entertaining. So, a brief note on the local media. I'll just touch on the local media for 1 second. And I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings. I'm sure there's local media. They're good people, probably, some of them, I'm sure. But as a rule, they will never do you any good. Never, ever, ever, ever. Maybe that's true. If you want to talk about local school board elections or local matters that in your political and that will make a difference in your region, that might be worthwhile. But don't talk about larger issues to the local media, because they don't know. They don't know at all. I was in Amsterdam a couple of years ago, and there was a terrorist attack. It was post 9/11. Some bomb somewhere went off or something, or an anthrax thing maybe, right? Lots of that stuff going on. And I was walking down the street, and this journalist, this local Amsterdam journalist, walked up to me and said, "Hey, are you an American?" I'm like, "Oh, yes, I'm an American. Like, we want your opinion, your reaction to blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay. Can you tell me that a little bit carefully and a little bit more closely, the blah, blah, blah? Because, that's all I know about it, right? What do I know about it? Who the heck am I? I'm a man on the street. I don't know. and I haven't read anything about it, I haven't researched anything about it. How can I gain an opinion that by definition is an uneducated opinion? So tell me about the terrorist stuff, and I'll give you my reactions to it. And he's like, yeah, we need a different American, right? That's not the right American for us. There's a few questions that, and I think it's getting better, but years and years ago there were the common questions that if you were interviewed as a hacker that you would always get. One of them is the definition of hacking, and man, that's like, I wish that discussion would go away. I wish the hackers could get the word back, and that'd be that. But there's another one that is, what's your most impressive hack? And to me, I translate this to, what laws have you broken, the most dramatic and critical ones, that you can talk about on television? Yeah, thanks guys, you're looking out for me. You get your interview, I get my jail time. That rocks. So I have my answer to that though, when the media asks me what's my most impressive hack, and I'm not sure many of them get this, that no media I've ever related this story to ever says, wow, that's a great hack. They all kind of frown, and no one will ever print it. This will not ever be printed as the greatest hack I had. So the local media came to 2600 in Austin, and I was there. And there was a local crew, and they had like the things for the cameras, the lighting, all sorts of things, like 3 people. And they're like, yeah, we want to know about hackers and hacking. This is 2600. You're all a bunch of hackers. Great. Want a story from the local news. Cool. So, I'm a skeptical person. Arguably, as a tester, I'm a professional pessimist. I'm like, I like interviewing the media. I enjoy interviewing the media, getting information about them, getting their perspective. This is interesting to me. So I asked her a number of questions. I asked the reporter a number of questions. I'm like, can you talk to me about Kevin Mitnick? All right, I figured 2600 meaning utter minimal research is going to 2600.com and spending 3.5 minutes there. So I'm like, what are the top issues at 2600.com off the top of my head? She should know something about some of these. Tell me about Kevin Mitnick. No. Do you know who Kevin Mitnick is? No. Do you know who Bernie S is? That was also a very large issue on the site. No. Do you know who... I went through a list of terms. I tried to make it as basic, as generic. I wasn't drilling down. It's not like I was doing an interview where I was trying to probe the depths of their knowledge. I was trying to find any knowledge. I was trying to find anything about any of the issues she might be reporting about that would have a glint of recognition in her eye. Nothing. Eventually she was getting very defensive. I didn't mean to put her on the defensive. I just wanted to have an understanding of where she was coming in. And she's like, look, I'm just blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, look, you don't do a story on the global economy without knowing what the New York Stock Exchange is. When you have a dumb look in your eyes when someone mentions New York Stock Exchange doing a story on the global economy, that's not a good sign. Maybe you're not the most qualified person to give that story. So I decided that this reporter should not get a story. Scrutiny on the local hacker scene would not be a good thing. I couldn't see any good coming out of it. What she wanted to do, what she wanted on the press, would not help us, would not help our cause, or the multiple of causes that people might have. It would be bad. So I went around to 30 people one by one, and I showed them the list of little key phrases I came up with, and I'm like, there was a blank look on all of these. She doesn't know any of this. So what we need to do is after I've talked to everyone about this, we all need to look at each other, stand up, and leave, and kill the entire 2600 meeting after about 20 minutes. So we did this, and her stories walked out the door en masse. Everyone left. Everyone was gone, and I'm like, yeah, that's the hack I'm most proud of. And I can assure you, if I told a story about breaking into some banking system instead, that shit would get printed every day, all day long. You'd be like, wow, yes, you hacked into blah, 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 cool. But when I explained that I killed a reporter's story that was clueless and deserving of it, honestly, most media wouldn't even understand why I would call that a hack. They wouldn't get it at all. There was one person that stayed behind. I convinced everyone to leave the room, everyone left, everyone went somewhere else to party. One person stayed behind. But he had a consulting business he was just starting up, and he was trying to pimp it. Which is good. He was sort of like Peter Shipley. He's like, media, I have a point. I'm selling something. I can get on television. People will know who I am, and I can make money from it. And at the time, I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't run away like the rest of the people. But in retrospect, I understood that was very reasonable. So there's another instance which I think it's inappropriate to talk to the media, even if they're good media. And I'll tell you personally, if I had my druthers, I prefer to do background work. I prefer to do background because, and here's the reason why we should talk to the media at all. You know, I'm kind of drumming all these negative things, but you know, I don't want everyone walking away from here saying I'm not going to talk to the media. They're going to screw me. The problem is there's already these perceptions about what a hacker is, how dangerous they are, what a threat to society they are. There's all of these perceptions that are generally negative out there. And if hackers never stand up and have a voice to counter that, there will be no opposition to the people that have those opinions, and our voice will be lost, and the global conversation that is the media will be dominated by people that want to demonize and criminalize us. So we really do need to be in the media to some degree and articulate clearly why we're not the bad guys and why we need to reclaim the word and why the laws are over harsh and people shouldn't go to jail for writing crypto code or hacking some hardware for fun and profit. So, for example, let me tell you when I think I would want to refer a reporter to someone else. I'm comfortable talking to the media, but there's times when I think the thing about background is you're informing the person who's doing these stories, and we'll do further stories. You're giving them a background of knowledge that they will use and in the future and a context, because honestly, if we could just inform all the media and educate them and get them on the right perspective, none of us would have to come on camera ever, because they would then start doing good journalism. So background is the coolest thing, I think. Point them to resources and links where they can get informed about these issues and hear reasonable people articulate about them, and point them to academics that have reasonable opinions. Let me give you an example. Occasionally I wear a black trench coat. If I'm wearing this black trench coat and all punked out and looking like a freak, and a reporter comes up to me and says, hey, we want to talk about library filters and keeping child porn out of the hands of people that go to the library, I'll take a look at myself in the mirror and I'll be like, did you just ask me to defend child pornography? What? No, I'm against filters, but no, hold on. Furthermore, I look like a freak, which is fine sometimes. I like looking like a freak. That's a lot of fun. But what I think would be more appropriate, partially because I'm not the expert on these things, and I know who the experts are. I know the people that have made library filtering their cause and can name congressional sites that the filters won't let you get to, and all this sort of things. People that are really in-depth and know what they're talking about. I would refer them to someone else, and I would not let them take the story from me. And another example, if someone wanted to talk to me about e-voting, for example, I would not, at DEF CON, if they hadn't talked to Rebecca Mercury, who did the presentation on it and knows all this stuff, I wouldn't want to talk to him, because wait a second, you're not looking to be informed on this. The information's right there. That's the expert source. I'll give an opinion if you've already gotten the expert. I'll be the man on the street for that one, right? And And I haven't found a single security expert or hacker that thinks electronic voting is secure in any means. And let me know if you find one afterwards. I'm interested in having a discussion with them. That should be lots of fun. But if you can point the media to the right place and not do the story yourself, you're still impacting the media in a good way. You're still creating the story that you want created, because we talked a little bit about PR firms and the influence of corporations on the media. PR firms write press releases, and those press releases get turned into news stories, and the vast majority of everyone on the globe is lazy. This also applies to journalists. So if they can get spoon-fed some stories, they're all over it. And hence you'll see stories that were essentially handed to them. And even on television, you'll see stories on television where the video footage is provided by a multinational corporation who's pushing their agenda, and they're creating news. And news is very much event-oriented. There's nothing that happens. For example, I'll use the electronic voting as an example. I think this is very interesting. The state of the security in the voting systems has been poor forever, since anyone ever attempted to do anything. There has been some scrutiny, there has been some research that's shown this, but this has been a known fact to anyone that's cared to investigate. And for some reason, apparently 2 days ago, all of the media around was publishing stories about what happened at Black Hat and then at DEF CON regarding Bev Harris and Rebecca Mercury's speech on electronic voting. This was an event for them. Nothing happened, right? There wasn't an explosion somewhere that happened and suddenly voting was insecure. No, there was an event that happened, which was they gave a presentation, and suddenly the media wrote all these stories about something that was a constant condition. There's this constant condition of what was going on, but it wasn't newsworthy until there was an event associated with it. So they're very much event-driven, and we're at an event right now, obviously. Oh yeah, I have to mention this. This is the most mortifying media experience that ever happened to me at DEF CON. I wanted to shoot myself, like when the person introduced themselves. So I'm hanging around, pool, whatever, and someone walks up to me and they say, "Hi, I'm from Teen People." I'm like, oh, fuck. No. How did you get here? How do you know about this? And they're like, yeah, we want to talk to you about what you're wearing. Can you talk about some fashion trends in the hacker community? So I told them no. And then I asked them for a gun and a bullet so I could shoot myself. So when Teen People are showing up at DEF CON, I don't know. They shouldn't have gotten the memo. They should not have gotten that memo. They're like, it'll be fun. And you know, I couldn't criticize them too much. So like, to expect knowledge, wisdom, and perspective from a reporter from Teen People, you know, then I'm an idiot, right? So that's another thing. In addition to looking at the reporter and looking at the stories they've done, be it newsprint or video, also look at what they're doing the story for. What's the publication? So it's entirely possible that the reporter has been like a reasonable person that's been doing freelance work, that there's lots of great stuff they've been doing, but right now their assignment is from some really bad paper, some really, I'm being videoed. I don't want to give any examples, Fox, offhand. But if they're from a source that is clearly unreputable or has a context of printing things that are inflammatory or irresponsible, then while the person may be a responsible person and a good person, their editor is demanding things from them in order to get something published and printed, and so it probably won't be a good story. So also look at the publication and look at the context in which it will appear. Yes. I love silence. Silence is so much fun. Let me just give a couple practical tips for talking to video media, and I really recommend video media it'll hit more people, it will reach more people, so that's an advantage. But print media is, in my mind, the only thing that has a chance to educate people unless the format is of considerable length. 3 minutes, it's not going to work. But if you're going to talk to video media, and I've done it, and I continue to do it for some reason, it's probably my ego. Let me give you some tips. First of all, whatever the reporter says, and they ask you a question, you're on tape, remember that is not what is going to be on television. Their question will never appear. Anything you ever say to the media has to stand alone. I would say every sentence that you speak, expect it to be chopped out, and there's just that one sentence. So try to think in complete thoughts and complete sentences, construct them, and this will help you from being taken out of context. So, and if you want to fuck with the media, the video or whatnot, you just want to play with them a little bit. They shove a camera in your face and ask you a question. Just answer yes, I think so, or no, not really. And they can't use it, and then they'll try to explain like, no, you really need to explain it a little bit, but yes, I do. Another thing is if, and I misspeak myself consistently, continually, if you find yourself saying something you didn't mean to say on camera, now obviously we're not talking about anything live, and God, I would never do anything live. If you find yourself saying like, oh wow, what am I saying here? Stop yourself mid-sentence. Make the entire clip unusable and just say, oh, I'm sorry, and then just start a new sentence. Because they know how to splice and clip. So anytime you're uncomfortable with what you just said, or you don't think you stated it in the most effective and appropriate way, stop yourself mid-sentence. And explain, say, let me restate, because that also won't be in the media, and then try to do it again. They'll understand this. That's absolutely fine. Also, I highly recommend thinking after they ask the question. Don't answer them immediately. Tell me about blah blah blah. Do not open your mouth at that point. Do not do that. Because the instinct and people are conversational people, and they want to just react without thinking, and words come out of people's mouths without thinking them through. That can be very bad for you. So you get the question, sit on it for a couple seconds, kind of construct not all the words, but like construct a response in your mind, and then give it back out to them. And they won't mind this. And if they do, it doesn't matter. You're just looking out for your own best interests. You don't want to be a sound bit. That's always very bad. Oh, yes. The glory of word. I would like to talk a little bit about the evolution of covering hackers in the media and how everything has changed, and I think for the better. DEF CON, I believe, was the first, and I could be wrong, that's fine, I'm often wrong, I believe it was the first hackers conference to invite the media. And this wasn't, there were some mixed feelings about this. We also invited a prosecutor and the media and lawyers. So we figured, well, feds are going to come anyways. So we might as well invite them, let everyone know up front. The feds are here. But then if the feds want to bust us for something unreasonable, we want press here to cover that, so little checks and balances going on. And then if we really need one, we want a lawyer on hand too. So we invited lawyers and then the press and the feds. I think that's a good idea. I'm happy how that's worked out. The coverage has changed a lot over the years, and I don't know how many of you, when you started getting interest in this stuff, went through every frac that was ever published and read them cover to cover. I will tell you, there's a hand up there. Rock on, dude. Have you done that in the last 3 years? Because 10 years ago, that was doable. 10 years ago, you could like go through and you'd have some reams of paper and stacks of paper, but you could actually get through and read all this stuff. Now, like a single frac issue is a friggin' book. So reading it all now is a lot harder. I still think everyone should do it. But there's a section in there about news coverage. And I think it's really interesting to look at those old fracs, and they reprint news stories, and they show you what people were saying about hackers and the context they were portrayed in the media then, and it was abysmal. It was scary. There was no nuance. It was bad. It was about criminal activities, and it was about impressive hacks and people going to jail and all. There's no one on the beat. The media that were writing these stories weren't informed on the topics they were writing about. And as time has gone by, there are high-tech computer crime reporters that aren't clueless, that know what they're doing. And if you have a story, if you have some information that is newsworthy, and you want to give it to someone, make sure you find the best reporter to hand it to, the trustworthy one, and people that have been covering this beat for some time. And I must give some props to Kevin Poulsen's journalism. I guess he has a bit of a perspective and knowledge on it that surpasses your average journalist. So things are improving dramatically, and there's a lot more balanced and fair coverage now, so to speak. And I think collectively, we are the only ones that can really improve the situation further. We are the only ones that have the power to change the public's perception of what it is to be passionate and curious and obsessive about technology that doesn't merely have criminal connotations. I don't know if the word hacker, if we can reclaim that word to just mean, obsessively curious, anti-authoritarian, not a bad person, really. Without hackers, we'd be in trouble. Oh, just a small thing that amused me about what the media was reporting without a one-sided report. A few years ago, virtually every company out there was a large company, wanted to make a very public statement about hackers and their hiring policies. And so there was story written about how XYZ company does not hire hackers. This does not happen. It was unopposed. There was no opposing voice in the press. There was no one there was no stories to counter this thing. And therefore, the Globe, everyone that read any of this, anyone that saw any of these things, you're like, oh, well, Microsoft doesn't hire hackers. ISS doesn't hire hackers. BindView does, and I'm not, those weren't necessarily companies that said it. I was just picking random companies as examples. The funny thing was, though, at the time, all of my hacker friends were employed. It was at the top of the dot-com boom. They all had jobs. And I looked at these people, these companies who were giving quotes about not hiring hackers, and all my friends were working at them. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know what they meant when they said that. Either they were lying, or the PR person that decided to give that quote to the media didn't know the freak that was actually keeping their infrastructure intact. I'm not sure. I assume it was very deliberate misinformation and deception, but it was unopposed. There weren't people standing up and saying, yeah, I work for, well, that was the problem. The people don't want to jeopardize their job, but if someone would have stood up and said, hey, all my friends are working at all these companies and everyone's a liar, I think I think the perception of hackers would be changed at that point, and a small bit, right? You just kind of You have to keep whittling away at the people's perceptions and constant influx of reinforcement of the message. So people in corporations are taught how to deal with the media. They're given little classes, little one-day classes. And I talked to someone recently that speaks to the media at a large corporation. They speak to them quite a lot. And one of the things she says, and it makes complete sense, it's kind of conventional wisdom, intuitive, is to stay on point. Right? Remember I was talking about their agenda and your agenda? They say, well, what about the dangers of child pornography at libraries? And you say, well, the problem with filtering is that all these things are blocked out, and these First Amendment issues and these freedom of speech issues, and essentially you're not addressing the question at all. Right? They ask you the question, and that response has nothing to do with their question. But they still might use it. It still might be useful for them. They might be frustrated by this, but they still have something. They have some content. At the end of the day, they need to publish a story, so it might get in. So stay on point. Think of your agenda every time you open your mouth. What is the point I'm trying to make? And don't worry about not addressing their question. They say X, don't even just say, think to yourself, I can say anything I want now. They appreciate it, and they'll probably get frustrated if they don't get anything they can use. So you need to, if you want to propagate your message, you have to give it within the context of the story they're writing. So you have to give them something they're going to use, but always stay on message and on point. And you can see this in action. It's terribly frustrating with politicians, for example. You ever see politicians interviewed, and they're like, wow. Person asks a question, the answer had nothing to do with it. They're harping on, they're reading a script. Like they're ignoring the journalist. What's going on there? I don't know, in the interview it looks like the person's totally evasive and whatnot. Of course, that's an interview setting as opposed to many other formats where the interviewer you never see the interviewer, which is generally how all of us would ever get in the media, unless we're sitting down with Tom Brokaw or whatever. So always stay on point. I don't know. I have about 20 minutes material on how to be an intelligent news consumer, but I'm in about 5 minutes of time, so I'll wrap it up and say, how you're perceived is up to you. We have impact on how hackers as a whole are perceived. Being able to be given the opportunity to talk to the media gives you power, but it can also place you in danger. And don't get hacked by the media, because it's not because they were bad people, it's because your defenses were down. And if you do it right, you and we can hack the media successfully. Thank you.